Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and today we are going to be giving an overview of HeroQuest TACTICS. HeroQuest TACTICS is a game mode made by Marcel Zons and is freely available to check out. It is a very accessible game mode. I've only gone through a few pages of the rule set here, which is only 13 pages. It's a pretty quick read, and it's pretty easy to adapt some of these rules in their modularity, or all of them to your current games of HeroQuest. But to read the self-description verbatim, the following is an overview of various tweaks, new rules, and a plethora of new content that should help to make HeroQuest, the 2021 remake, a more rewarding, intriguing, and tactical, and thus interesting game experience. Now, I would argue you could go ahead and take all of this and apply it to the old version of the game as well. There's very little difference in terms of the US and global contemporary. You could probably even apply these tactics rules to the UK/EU versions of the game without any modifications at all. We'll get to why that is here very shortly when we approach my favorite rule out of all of this. But to continue, as part of this homebrew set, a bunch of new cards can be introduced optionally. This covers content specific to HeroQuest Tactics, but also isolated new cards like the spell decks for black, arcane, or dimension magic, new monsters, items, and so on. In visiting the link in the document, we are given access to just an absolute ton of cards, including a drive folder where you can find the HeroQuest Builder tokens that supplement this tactics rule set for use with HeroQuest Builder. This is galaxy brain levels of accessibility. Let's check out a couple of the cards. This is Curse of Weakness. This is one of the dark magic cards. Play this card when the hero declares an attack. That hero rolls 2 fewer combat die for this attack to a minimum of 1. Should be combat dice. The dark magic deck is something that keeps the game going. It's your chaos events deck basically for use with this particular system. No reason why you couldn't use other systems, but that may significantly affect the difficulty and the flow of play. Let's continue checking out a few more of these cards. Dark Magic's Wandering Goblin. At the beginning of a round, you may spawn a goblin anywhere in the already explored dungeon. Dark Magic Temporal Distortion. When a hero is about to begin their turn, you can play this card to force them to skip their entire turn. We'll check out one of the hero cards, and I'm particularly interested in the Crystal Witch. Attack and defend of 2, body and mind points of 5, 2 red dice for movement, the Crystal Sword as the starting weapon, and no starting armor. You are the Knight, a royal warrior who is trained wait a minute. Wrong direction. You are the Crystal Witch, a mystical fighter with an even more mysterious background. You have exclusive access to 3 crystal spells that you can use at your disposal. No other character can ever use these spells. Here are the crystal spells that accompany this character. Crystal Growth, place a blocker on a square that you can see and that is unoccupied. It remains until it gets broken by a hero or monster. It sustains 2 body points, defense with 2 combat dice. As the Crystal Witch, you can remove it anytime at will. Crystalline Skin and Glamorous Insight. Now, we haven't gotten to the meat of the tactical system at all. We're just looking at some of the resources that come with it right out of the gate, but I do want to comment. You get this spell back into your hand as soon as spend a turn only walking, not performing any actions. That's pretty cool. That's an interesting way to recharge your magic. The Courtesan, 2255. The starting weapon is the Battle Fan, a seductive adventurer who can motivate her companions. You have exclusive access to 3 mind spells that you can use at your disposal. The mind spells include Comfort. A hero that you can see regains 1 body point. As soon as you have used another mind spell, you get this spell back into your hand. Oh. Motivate. A hero that you can see may roll and keep an additional red die for movement on their next turn. And Reassure. A hero that you can see may either regain 1 mind point or move 4 squares. This means every other turn, this character has a healing spell. That is a really interesting way to use this system of recharge. Very interesting. Back to the tactics document itself, I want to go over this section here. It is literally one of my favorite things, movement rolls. Instead of rolling 2 red dice, heroes roll 4 red dice and choose 2 results. The latter is actually based on the red dice stat mentioned on a given hero card. Choosing a 6 doesn't provide any movement points, but instead grants an additional action that can either be performed before or after moving. So, in practice, we're taking 4d6 and we're rolling them. When we are prepared to move our character, we are selecting 2 of the dice, whichever 2 we'd like. We are drafting dice, essentially. Probably always going to choose the higher numbers, I guess, because you can always choose to not complete your movement. But choosing a 6 grants you an additional action. So you can get a 6, a 1, a 2, and a 4. You're probably going to grab the 4, but if you get the 6, then you can move your hero 4 spaces only for movement, and the 6 can be exchanged for an additional action. I really like that mechanic. You can grant this additional action. It can be performed before or after moving. Such a bonus action cannot be the same type of action that the hero has already performed, and if the hero performs their bonus action before their usual action, then the usual action cannot be the same type of the bonus action. Therefore, a hero cannot search 2 times for treasure, attack 2 times, or cast 2 spells. This puts a lovely limit on how the hero can actually go about his or her turn, or their turn. So a hero can draft the dice, grab a 6. Actually, it's possible here to roll 2 6s, and then you've got a total of 4 actions you can make. But wait, why did I say 4? You've got a total of 3 actions you can make, and you just don't move at all. And so your actions can be attack a monster. It might be the only monster left in the room. Then, now that the room is empty, search for traps, and not finding any traps, search for treasure. And having searched for treasure, if you find a wandering monster and you're the very first hero in the lineup of heroes to get their turns, the other heroes can come in and deal with that wandering monster. I love that, and it goes on to clarify if any items or effects alter the amount of red dice a hero would have available, alter them proportionally to the above rules. So if an item would remove 1 red die, it would mean the hero instead rolls 2 less dice and chooses 1 less die. If a spell doubles red dice, then the hero rolls twice the usual amount and chooses double the amount. That's pretty nuts. That's pretty crazy. So plate armor can actually restrict your movement and not necessarily keep you from performing bonus actions unless you definitely wanted to roll for movement, choose a non-6, and then choose a 6 for a bonus action. So getting plate mail means you just roll 2 dice. That's your dice pool, and now you just pick 1 for either movement or bonus action if you roll a 6. The spell doubling the red dice, that's fun. That's fun. I wish it wasn't multiplicative like that. I'd probably do it additive and subtractive. So like if it removes 1 red die, I'd say roll 3 and then choose 1 to be your movement and or bonus action. But that's just me. I do love this rule. It is a really, really cool rule. Line of sight and targeting. To make matters more tactical, all spells and effects that target a specific hero or monster or a square have to provide a line of sight between the target and the source unless the effect explicitly says otherwise. Now, I'm pretty sure this is already a rule for pretty much every single spell in the game. Honestly, I can't even think of an example where this is not the case unless I think all the way back to, I believe, Fire of Wrath from the 1989 HeroQuest UK edition, EU edition, because that one allows you to create a pillar of fire that can affect any enemy on the board. Any enemy that is present on the board, regardless of it. If it's behind a wall in a room that's separate from where you're at, you should be able to target it. It's a very OP spell. However, contrary to the original rules, heroes can draw a line of sight over their allies, but not over monsters. So heroes are finally able to cast things over their friends, their allies. And monsters can do the same, so be careful. There will be no more magical doorway combat, so to speak. Potions. To avoid treating potions as an instant revival, and to make the point in time at which a potion is being used a more tactical decision, the maximum body points, aka hit points of every hero, is 2 points higher than what it typically would be. However, using potions that could heal a hero now require an action called Use Consumable. Only upon performing this action, the hero can handle the potion's effects as described and then discard it. So to give an example of line of sight in this new system, we have our wizard, we have an elf, and we have an orc that the wizard is wishing to target with his fireball ability. The wizard has already moved into position using his movement and therefore can't move any more to get a better line of sight. But in this tactical system, this doesn't matter. The wizard can actually fire past the elf and burn up the orc with a fireball spell. Now it's the dwarf's turn, and the dwarf has rolled 4 red movement dice and has chosen 2 of them. After attacking the snake man, the dwarf is able to use 1 of his movement dice to move into the adjacent room and then use his bonus action to search for treasure. There is a treasure chest here, so the player hopes to receive treasure. But of course, the treasure chest is trapped. The dwarf should have searched for traps. Stupid dwarf. You're an idiot. To give an item to another hero, heroes have to be adjacent to each other, can be diagonal. However, doing so requires a new action called Trade Item. This allows to transfer a single item. A hero may also use this action to take an item from an adjacent hero, but only if the target hero agrees to this. The wizard has already used his action and his turn, and now it's the elf's turn. The elf really wishes to have one of the items that the wizard has picked up. It is a circlet, and the wizard can't actually use it. The wizard found it in a room when searching for treasure, but the elf can use it. And so the elf is going to roll their draft dice. They roll a 4 and a 6 and decide to go ahead and take the 4 and 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and they'll stop here and go ahead and, if the wizard agrees, use their bonus action to take the circlet. But the wizard doesn't agree because the wizard's going to sell it at the market in between quests. Ha ha, you stupid elf, you've wasted your turn. Changing equipment has now been solved as well. A hero can change their active equipment once at any point during their turn. A hero can have 2 one-handed weapons or 1 two-handed weapon active. A two-handed weapon is any ranged weapon or melee weapon that grants 4 or more combat dice. In case a hero wields 2 one-handed weapons, they can choose which weapon to attack with when they perform an attack. Keep in mind that a shield counts like a one-handed weapon. So you can change your active equipment once at any point during your turn, not during the monster's turn. So if you decide to equip a large two-handed axe and then you go attack an orc, if you haven't already moved, you can take advantage of this rule by going ahead and changing your equipment. It doesn't take an action. I see. If you have already moved, you had to move up to a monster, for example, and then you attacked the monster. Then after you attack the monster, your turn ends, and I don't believe that I would allow you to change your equipment because your turn technically is over after you attack the monster. There's no other action you can take. There's no other thing that you can do. So I'd probably disallow you from changing equipment. Otherwise, this clause is negated. So I think that's the rules as intended. I would like to see this changed into an action myself, or at the very least a disclaimer that says you can't do this after you've chosen to either move or attack or what have you. Maybe at the beginning of your turn, you can change your equipment. But I think after you end your turn, you should be locked in with whatever you have because that keeps people from exploiting the system as you are able to do, at least if this hasn't already been talked about in session 0. Thrown weapons is another clause here that I really, really like. Instead of fully losing a thrown weapon, regular thrown weapons, not artifacts, leave a token at the location where they were thrown. When an enemy was targeted, place the token underneath. A hero can walk over the token to pick up the weapon again, no more losing your daggers. This might be a problem with heroes like the rogue, who are basically posited to have an unlimited amount of daggers. A further homebrew can kind of refine that and limit it, but generally speaking, your rogue is going to be able to throw daggers all over the place at all times, and all the heroes will be able to walk over the other daggers, thereby building up a collection of daggers. Then again, you may need to have those as equipment equipped to your character. So it might become a bit of a mess to remember what you have equipped and what you've thrown and what you've lost for the time being and whether or not you have any weapons in your offhand. Time pressure. To prevent heroes from idling around or using new feats to refill their health before exploring further, just like the Crystal Witch, not the Crystal Witch, the Courtesan, this homebrew system introduces a time pressure mechanic. See the section Zargon's Dark Magic, and we will. Searching rooms for treasure is next on the document. To avoid heroes bogging down the game by searching rooms for treasure repeatedly and to simplify the tracking of information, every room can only be searched for a single time. I appreciate this, and this is the rule that I like to use whenever I'm Zargoning. This is after any specific treasures of the room, like chests, have been searched for and collected. Example, a room has a treasure chest. The first time a hero searches the room for treasure, they may reveal and take the contents of the chest. The second time any hero searches that same room, they may draw a treasure card as usual. After that, the room cannot be searched anymore. Use appropriate tokens to mark the room as searched. When designing your own quests, you may declare a room as rich. You can mark this with a token, but it should definitely be described to the heroes upon revealing the room. When a hero searches a rich room, they draw 2 treasure cards and choose one result. The other card gets discarded. In this way, you're able to ignore traps or wandering monsters, unless you draw 2 traps, 2 wandering monsters, or a trap and a wandering monster, in which case, I guess you pick the lesser of 2 evils. Leveling and feats. For players who wish for a more traditional RPG experience in which your characters become more powerful over time, you can use this optional house rule. It also helps to offset the reduced income of items due to the limitations of searching for rooms and providing players with more ownership and identity of their own hero. Every time a hero finishes a quest, they gain an experience point. They can spend these experience points in between adventures to purchase any of the below feats, unlocking the special rules they provide. These can be noted down on the backside of a given hero's sheet, and a given feat can only be learned once, not multiple times unless otherwise stated. You can adjust the difficulty of your campaign by allowing your heroes to start off with some amount of experience points initially from 0 to 5. Giving more experience points initially makes it easier for the heroes to stand their ground, and this can help to offset playing with less than 4 heroes. I like this rule, but I only like this if a hero is lost somewhere at the middle or end of the campaign. I would start granting experience points to brand new heroes that are rolled, and I wouldn't necessarily want to bring them up to the level of the other heroes. I'd want to start them off with a little bit of a buff, but not too much, because for the most part, you can complete any of the quests in the base game system with brand new heroes. It's difficult, but it's doable. You can also complete the vast majority of quests in Keller's Keep and Return of the Witchlord with brand new heroes. But I do think it would be very prudent to allow a feat system or an experience point system or catch-up system in some way to bring new heroes or people who have to re-roll heroes to retry a quest a little bit up to speed, a little more in line with the difficulty of the quest with which they are now faced, now that they've made it that far and have already lost. I mean, after all, we're not really trying to play Iron Man mode, are we? Examples of some of these are cantrips, which has an experience point cost of 1. Choose a spell with a numeric effect, such as damage or healing, or against which targets roll defense. You can cast it as a cantrip at will, without discarding the card, and even if the card has been discarded previously. The cantrip version of the spell has half the effect rounded to your disadvantage, doubling the target's defense dice, for example, as appropriate. I'm not sure if that example makes sense, as there's not a specific spell that's called out. You can select this feat more than once, choosing a different spell each time. Basically, if you're going to cast Bolt of Fire or Fire of Wrath, you'll do X amount of damage if the spell hits, but the cantrip version of the spell should allow the target to roll double the defense dice. And in that way, the cantrip version of those attack spells have half the effect. You can also get stuff like Toughness, in which your hero will have 1 more maximum body point available before dying. Iron Resolve, where your hero has 1 more maximum mind point. Taunt, as a new type of action, you can taunt one enemy within line of sight, forcing them to target you in their next attack if possible. Roll a combat die, and if you roll a skull, they'll move toward you and attack during their turn, so long as they could reach you. A lot of these bonus type actions to me are pretty pointless, except we have the ability to have bonus actions. A lot of these are so situational that you'd probably likely never use them in vanilla HeroQuest, but with the introduction of bonus actions and allowing you to do things like attack and then use a spell or ability, or search a room for treasure and then perhaps gain a wandering monster, well, your turn would end immediately in that case. So I kind of, no matter what. That's a bad example. But anyway, you'll find a lot of opportunities to use these skills, these feats and abilities that otherwise you might not be able to use. Find situations in which to use them practically. Grip on Life is a fun one. Instead of being killed when reaching 0 body points, your hero merely becomes incapacitated. Leave the miniature where it is and skip all your turns. Others can use potions or spells on you to heal you, but their effect is halved. Round up. As soon as you have 1 body point or more, you can participate again. For 2 experience points, you can invest in a skill called Weapon Finesse. At the beginning of a quest, you may declare 1 specific weapon card, and if you attack with that weapon, you may re-roll 1 of your combat dice on each attack if you didn't roll any skulls initially, meaning you'll never miss. The monster could still defend and negate your attack, but you'll never outright miss. Unless you roll a no skull the second time, then you do miss, but it's more fantastical. It's more hilarious. Imagine rolling all shields only to re-roll 1 of the dice, and it's a shield again. Berserker Parry Mastery, which is really cool. Once per round, you can add 2 additional combat dice to any one of your defense rolls. That one's going to be pretty OP whenever your hero is engaged in combat with just 1 monster and there are no other monsters around. That hero will be a tank. And Quick Reflexes. Instead of having to act in a fixed turn order, you may determine the point of your own turn freely each round, but you have to act before Zargon. I don't know if I like this one. This one is more just something you should work out when you are playing Session 0. Vigilance is a pretty useful one. It costs 2 experience points, and it's something that all the heroes could do to invest in. You gain 1 extra action once per quest during any one of your turns, which can even be performed mid-movement. This action may be the same type as any of the other actions you perform during your turn. Additionally, when you search for traps, you automatically search for secret doors as well. There are a lot more of these, and we're really only on page 6 out of 13 at this point until we get to the special techniques section. These ability cards are only usable when a hero chooses the feat special technique and learns that particular technique. Doing so means the hero has that ability card at their disposal during each quest. The following is just an overview. The actual cards can be found under the link mentioned in the beginning. Crucially, finally we get to Zargon's Dark Magic. If heroes take their sweet time, Zargon's power just grows. Zargon draws a new Dark Magic card at the end of each game round. And it should be at the end of the round, so the heroes can already continue playing, rather than everyone waiting for Zargon just to read the new card. Zargon can never have more than 5 of these cards in his hand. Should he draw too many, he can discard cards of his choice until he is down to 5. However, Zargon can always discard 3 Dark Magic cards to draw a random epic Dark Magic card, which are found in a separate deck. We have various Dark Magic card summaries, and then epic Dark Magic cards, such as Elite Monster, Fog of War. Play this card at the beginning of a round. Every hero can only see up to 2 squares far, and their search for traps and secret doors doesn't reveal anything further than 2 squares away. Necromancer's Call. Resurrect all defeated monsters in the targeted room or corridor, placing them back on the board with full body points. Only monsters that have a maximum of 1 body point are affected by this. Play this card only at the beginning of a round. Dimensional Rift. Play this card immediately after a hero finishes their turn. Remove that hero's figure from the board. They have been pulled into a dimensional rift. Secretly select a room with a closed door that has been revealed by the heroes. Note down the chosen room on a piece of paper. When the heroes enter the chosen room, the displaced hero reappears and may immediately take their turn, placing their figure anywhere within that room. Finally, there is a section on monster traits. When designing your own quests, this following rule is useful to make more challenging and engaging monsters that will oftentimes require deeper tactical approaches to deal with them. You can also apply this rule to special monsters of official adventures if your group of players agrees to it. Again, we have summaries of cards that are available in the link mentioned at the beginning of this document. Sorceress. The monster draws a random dread spell at the beginning of its turns that only it can use instead of performing a regular attack. Legendary Fighter. The monster counts hero shield symbols on its defense instead of monster shields and can re-roll its combat dice when it attacks and didn't roll any skulls. Wrestler. The monster gains +1 attack die, and after the monster performed a melee attack, it can move the targeted hero by up to 4 squares in a single direction. This must be influenced by Kurgan. And that is pretty much it for the HeroQuest Tactics homebrew overview. There's a lot of information here, and it will be linked in the description below, obviously, for all of you to check out. Please go give the author some love, some comments. Comment where you can, and if you can't find any place to give direct feedback, comment down below, and I'll encourage the author to check out that stuff down there. What do you like about this? What would you take from it? Would you use the whole thing? Are there things that you would change using your own homebrew licensure? I thank you all, brave heroes, very much for watching. I will see you in the next exciting adventure. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye for now.